Thank you, Doug. Thank you for that. Our next speaker is Kathy Gaffney from Hazards. Kathy.
Hello. Today I want to speak out publicly for the first time about the fact that I believe that my father died of an industrial disease. He worked in an electronics factory in Scotland. He died before he could reach retirement. He worked on soldering silver solder, which contained cadmium, and cadmium is a poison. The cadmium, there were studies which showed that cadmium can produce certain cancers, but the evidence wasn't so stringent in those days. It wasn't a definite connection. But he died. He had leukemia when he died. He looked like he was covered with bruises, top to toe. That was a result of the leukemia. He had kidney damage, he had lung damage, and all these three things and more are implicated with causes from cadmium. Now there's more evidence available nowadays, and it is a category 2 carcinogen, which just means that it's almost certainly, it's probably a causer of cancer. And I researched that link. I gave the information to my mother, such as was available in those days. I didn't think that he'd that we'd put in a claim, because my father had stopped paying his union dues because there was no union in the factory. He said there was bad working conditions and there was no trade union recognised. The two things go together. And the link was tenuous in those days, and I was told by solicitors that it probably wouldn't win anyway. But I only recently found out that my mother had been given a compensation payout from the employer when she showed them all the evidence that I had, and that's quite a rare thing with an employer in a non-union place, because there's usually some kind of fight involved in it. But knowing my mother, she's a bit of a fighter, so I'm sure she made sure that they knew all about it. Now, I'm still angry today because he suffered. We all suffered. He didn't live to his retirement. He didn't meet his grandson, our son, who's named after him. He didn't meet my new family, and they didn't meet him. So it follows that I want people to know more about this. It's not a connection that's terribly well known, so I'll say something more about it. Cadmium is now banned, but it still can be used. Now, there is information that can be loaded down from the Health and Safety Executive's website. It's Engineering Information Sheet 21, Exposure to Cadmium in Silver Soldering or Brazing. And that tells you what the control measures are if you do have to work with it. But, you know, cadmium stays in the body for, its half-life is 10 to 40 years. Now, what that means is that further down the line, somebody may actually die because of it and it not be known. But the electronics industry is full of these kind of substances that are killing people. Samsung is just one of those employers. Now, I'm going to say something about Samsung, but don't think that all the other employers are not like that. Some of them are, and some of them are worse than others. There's a Korean occupational health group called SHARPS, and they reckon that 118 Samsung workers died from work-related diseases since 2007, and hundreds more were made ill. Studies into working conditions in Vietnamese Samsung factories indicated a lot of problems, including a lot of miscarriages. Now, if you think, about half the workforce that makes Samsung's cell phones in Vietnam are women, and 80% of the workforce are young women of childbearing age. So it's a huge problem. It's become an expected part of the work there. If you work for them, you might get a miscarriage. It's shocking. Now, Samsung's an anti-trade union company that's waging a campaign against the workers who are fighting back. and against the campaigners who are fighting for more rights for those workers. Samsung has a lawsuit against the South Korean government for issuing a mandate to provide information about worker exposures, and there are people who have quite a few different petitions actually about that. But there's one such petition online. The leaflet we've been handing out tells us more. We've got a website, WM SafetyNet, wmsafety.net, and it tells you how to get onto that petition. But on the 1st of May, over 200,000 signatures are going to be handed in with this petition. It's an International Day of Action Against Samsung, so please support that if you possibly can. There's also a documentary made recently called Complicit that you can see online. It shows the hazardous practices in China in the electronics industry. It's a very moving, true story, featuring many people with leukemia, amongst other things, some of them very young. There's one aged 26 who killed himself, and that's part of their story. The benzene's banned in this country. It's what you call a category 1 carcinogen, which means it's definitely, beyond any shadow of a doubt, causes leukemias and some other cancer. But it's not banned in China. Now, benzene-free products are available. They're just ever so slightly more expensive. But we can insist that our electronics products are benzene-free, and that actually could save hundreds of lives. There's a thing called the Good Electronics Network that campaigns on this and related issues in the electronics factory. So it's up to us to do what we can to prevent more needless deaths. If I'm allowed to say any more, I'd just like to finish by saying a couple of things on Grenfell Tower, because I think we all know about the tragic fire that happened there, but we need to remember also the 72 people, at least 72 people who died on that day, plus the hundreds of people affected. Many of them were in that fire and lost everything, suffered. Some of them lost all their families, some of them lost all their possessions, made homeless, and quite a lot of them are still not housed or adequately catered for today, or adequately helped. We have to remember them and support those who are still fighting back, because the fight back of the people who are still looking for justice nearly a year later, they have not accepted what's going on, and what is happening is that I think we've reached a watershed. There's questions about all kinds of things in society that are being raised as a result of that, and you just don't hear, I don't think, so many people moaning about the elfin safety culture that, you know, that ridicules those of us who are actually fighting for safer working conditions. And I think it's because now we've seen the consequences of it, people are not quite so eager to do that, and it's up to us to do something about it. There's an urgent need for clarity on these things. Birmingham City Council, they have decided that they're going to put sprinklers into the tower blocks, but that decision's on hold because there is lots of controversy over whether in fact that is the right answer. So that's been on hold until after the next elections. So we urgently need a lot of clarity on what's needed, and a lot of, obviously people have got to take the time to get the decisions right in these bodies that are sitting, but we don't want any delay, and we have to support them. Now, as Secretary of West Midlands Hazards Trust, I would like to call on anybody who wants to do anything about these issues that any of us have talked about today to come and speak to me afterwards, because we desperately need more help. We have a website called SafetyNet, and I would urge people to come and give us some help in getting messages across like that. Thank you very much.